Hey, Arnett.
How are you? How are y'all?
I'm great, thanks. We're waiting for Amy to come back in. Her computer froze, so she's rebooting. And while we could definitely do without the president, the secretary is a much more important figure in the way things work.
Miss Tom,
How are you, Arnett?
I'm super. Yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
Good deal.
There she is. Okay, so it is 6:05. I'm going to call this meeting of the Montgomery Economic Development Corporation to order. And we have a full quorum. We are only missing Bob Kerr, I believe. Richard, do we have anyone who made public comments?
We did not have any submissions for public comment.
Okay, I will move on then to item number 3, approval of meeting minutes for regular meeting held on September 21st, 2020. Does anyone have any comments or updates or issues with this item? Hearing none, then I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the meeting minutes for the regular meeting held on September 21st, 2020. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Is now open for further discussion. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes for the regular meeting held on September 21st, 2020, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion passes unanimously, and we will approve the meeting minutes for the regular meeting held on September 21st, 2020. Item number 4, approval of financial reports. Julie.
Okay, so if you'll turn to the first page in our financial report, it reflects that we have $94,788.29 in our checking account, $1,440,035.81 in our investment accounts, which is comprised of 2 tax pool accounts, one representing the sales tax accrual that we've been making every quarter for when we have to pay pay Kroger their due, and then the other tax pool account, which is more of a savings account. Anthony put some notes down here at the bottom for us. He noted that the sales tax transfer was already received on October 9th and transferred of $56,979.38. And that's going to show up on October's financial report. I did check that number against October of 2019. And it shows that, that this number 56,979.38 is about a 10% decrease than what MEDC received in October of 2019. He also notes at the bottom of this report that going forward, we're making that switch. Instead of the quarterly accruals for the sales tax, we're transferring that to be monthly. So he's going to transfer $66.25 monthly for the Kroger sales tax accrual. And then also same thing, same switch for the general fund for the admin transfers. Instead of us accruing and transferring that on a quarterly basis, we're going to move that to a monthly basis, and it'll be $3,958.33 that you'll see each month. He also noted that he has already made those first month transfers in October for us. The last thing he noted is that we received $125 for Light Up the Park for September 2020, and he made that transfer on October 9th. So moving on to the cash flow report, we had a couple of disbursements that went to Becky Huss for website marketing, a reimbursement of expense. We had a very small $380 sales tax agreement payout of $954.51. And then of course we had our budget hearing that we had to post in the Chronicle. So that was $72. And then the next page shows the activity in the sales tax accrual account at TexPool. So it shows the fourth quarter transfer of 19,875, and then a little bit of interest. See if there's anything else. And then after, in the next page will be our savings account. And out of that, it shows that we're receiving our sales tax in September, and then we transferred out all of the quarterly transfers that Anthony booked. So I really like how Anthony is staying on top of these. When he books it in a month, he's going on and transferring it as well, so that we don't have an accrual to cash lag. We're able to see what's in our account is actually matching up with the P&L, with the profit and loss pretty closely. If you move on to the actual to budget performance report, it shows our September sales tax of $56,278.59 as being received. Our budget was $69,000, so we did come in under budget on that, whereas most of the year we've come in over budget. But overall, of course, we were over budget on the entire year of receiving over 110,000 more than we had budgeted for. I pulled the corrected numbers from September of 19 and September of 20 sales tax that we received is about 10% more over September of 2019. And when you compare fiscal year to fiscal year, total sales tax is consistent at being a little bit over 10% received this fiscal year compared to the fiscal year of 18-19. Anthony wanted to note that he's also still watching that text pool account to make sure those interest rates don't drop anymore. And if they do, then we will move that money out of text pool to secure it. And it looks, I think I did go over this with you guys, but that 125 from the Christmas, and Richard, can you speak into this? Can you give us a little bit of clarification about what that 125 was for?
I believe that's from the, for the light up the park, there's fees for certain of the light posts that are considered premium locations.
Okay.
And so those would be for several of those.
And this is the first year we've received that, right? Because in the past, has that been sponsored by, not by the city, but by another group?
Right. This is the first year for that. And I'd like to, to iterate here. Most of those light poles, there is no charge. We're just providing it, asking for the charge for the premium locations there to help defray the cost of the overall event. Okay.
And moving along there, you'll see the $40,000 transfer to debt service, which of course, that is going to be the last transfer and the last accrual that we make regarding that transfer to debt service moving forward. And then the sales tax reimbursement figure is made up of the quarterly accrual that's $19,875 plus that additional $954.51. Richard, can you speak to what that was from?
I'm sorry, you skipped on me, and what was the question I'm answering?
That $954.51 additional sales tax that we received, or that we paid out.
Oh, for the reimbursement?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's actually the first annual payment for the Shops of Montgomery location for that agreement. We did, at the time of budgeting, it was not anticipated they would reach the trigger. And they, when they reported to us that they did reach the trigger during the year, between Chick-fil-A and CVS location there. So so we and now from this point forward, that will be the same month each year where where that payment will go out, because it'll be an annual payment based on the trigger. We did, for the fiscal year that we've now begun, have an amount in there that was projected forward. So
wonderful. Okay, so that's great. So really, as you'll see, we are over budget on that line item by $954.51. But what that really means is that there's more sales in the city, and that's a good thing.
Or you could say that we neglected to accrue, kind of like we had been doing with Kroger. So we were lucky that it was only $1,000 that we didn't have to pay catch up on.
We were, but I see it as a positive that they hit this trigger point and we didn't expect it. And that's a good thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I know who calls the glass half full and who calls it half empty. In the end, though, I think the timing is good for us of how that happened, because there's only a set amount of time for that contract, and and actually that payment is relatively small compared to what it would have been had they not hit the trigger, this soon.
Mhm.
So in the long run, unless they're going to max out the total amount of the payment, and if it carries out over time, it might actually be to our benefit that the first payment is pretty low.
Okay.
Right. And we're accruing it now. So
Yes.
the surprise non-accrual pain is very small, and we're accruing, so there will be no more surprise or pain.
Absolutely. And so then we have a $65 social media advertising expense. Of course, our accrual to the general fund of $11,875, our quarterly accrual there for the fourth quarter, and then $72 of more. So I believe it's more social media, Becky. Let me look.
What page are you on?
Oh, no, excuse me. $72 was the Chronicle.
That would have been advertising that we had to do for the posting
Budget.
on the request for qualifications.
Okay.
Oh.
That rounds out the month.
Did somebody, I'm
so-
sorry,
Go ahead, Amy.
did somebody check on allocating previously approved event funds to sub accounts that we had discussed last month?
No, I think that has to be, if I understood it correctly, does that have to be agreed upon and voted on in an MEDC meeting?
I don't remember that.
That's what I wrote in my note, or that I thought that's what the minutes said.
I haven't read. I typed them up and then I've slept since then. So I don't-
Let me look at the minutes.
Because I thought we were going to check on that.
Okay, here's the
Action
minutes.
items.
Yeah, your minutes, the minutes say Mrs. has suggested bringing the item up at the next meeting in order to pass the budget cleanly and adjust it later.
So do we need to add that to the November agenda then?
So let me discuss that with Anthony and
Okay.
confer with Julie, and then we can decide what the appropriate path forward is in terms of bringing it back to the board, if the board's okay with that.
Okay.
I think between Julie and I, we understand the intent of the board, so.
Yeah.
Right. And by cleanly, I just meant not changing the what was on paper that was approved by council before we approved it, because I think that would have potentially
Right.
forced an adjustment to go back to council.
Yeah, so we can visit with Anthony and see if we formally need to put this on the agenda for next month, just to allocate those funds out, make those go on and allocate those to a sub account. And we can do that if Anthony says we can, or if Anthony's good with that.
Okay.
Did you guys?
I was just gonna say, apparently it's come up in politicking that there were questions about the number of checks that have been written to me, and I just wanted to make it clear for minutes and anyone else that's curious about that is a direct reimbursement of social media costs.
Yeah.
My my personal account is linked to the city account, so when something gets boosted, Susan is very protective, and rightly so, of the city credit card. So I do not have access to the city credit card. So it's my personal credit card
Sure.
that boosts those posts. So if I ask Richard, I get approval from Richard to boost a post. He says yes. Facebook bills me directly, and then I submit that reimbursement once the post is finished. And when Richard approves that, Anthony cuts a check. Richard is usually a signatory on the check, and then the second signatory per company policy is somebody else that is never me. I never sign my own checks. So I think it's usually Bob Kerr or Julie who signs the second, provides the second signature on those. So I've never signed a check to myself.
Mhm. And when you turn those in, you turn in the receipt. I mean,
Yes.
you can't get reimbursed without it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And just for my own personal thing, I usually send to Richard with the receipt a rundown of how well the ad did and an attempt to describe why it did well or poorly so that we can decide what to do next time, whether to continue on current trends or change why we're doing things the way we're doing them.
Got it.
So
Thank you.
anyway, just in case anyone's curious about that, it is not me getting fabulously paid while the rest of you are working for free. It is merely it is merely a reimbursement of actual expenses incurred.
Yes. Thank you for that clarification.
Yep. Apparently it's come up.
Okay.
So unless we can wrestle a company credit card away from Susan, which I don't expect any success in, it will continue.
Well, let us know if you do.
Knowing Susan, I don't think anyone's making it out of the building with the city credit card unless they're supposed to have one.
Yeah, yeah. I don't see that happening. For me to have my credit card on Facebook permanently, yeah, I think she would laugh if I asked. Does anyone have any other questions for Julie on the financial report? All right, then I'll entertain a motion.
Move to accept the financial report as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the financial reports as presented. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor of approving the financial reports as presented say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously and we will approve the financial reports. Item number 5, receive recommendation for the from the SOQ Review Committee for the Downtown Design and Streetscape Improvement Project.
All right, to include a little bit of review here, 7 statements of qualifications, SOQ, were received and distributed to the review committee, which included Rebecca Huss and Dan Walker from the MEDC board, Mayor Sarah Countryman, and the board also included 3 staff members, Dave McCorkadale, Director of Planning and Development, Mike McElroy, Public Works Director, as well as myself. The RFQ, request for qualification, itself was published August 21st with a submission deadline of September 21st. And each of these statements of qualifications were received and distributed to the committee for review. So everyone that I named there had 7 of those 7 to review. The committee met on October 7th and identified 2 firms to be invited for an interview and presentation to the committee. Those 2 firms were LJA Engineering and Gunda Corporation. The interviews were conducted on October 14th. Following both interviews, the committee met to discuss the firms, and both were thought to be well qualified and capable. Gunda Corporation was the first choice of 5 of the 6 committee members, so it had overwhelming support. Speaking from my own perspective, I'd say Gunda Corporation made its presentation and made obvious in its presentation that they had researched the city and the MEDC and our work to get to this point in the process. And I think they also did a better job of conveying how they would use their expertise to bring those ideas and concepts together in a design planning document for the downtown area. Gunda Corporation's statement of qualification and presentation materials were distributed to the full MEDC board last week, so you would all have an opportunity to review it ahead of this meeting. The next steps going forward would be for the MEDC board to accept the report and approve the committee's recommendation. The steps after that include completing and executing a final contract for services and referring that contract to the City Council for approval, as the City Council must approve all MEDC expenditures of at least $10,000. If, assuming approval of those items is given tonight, my intent would be to present this item to City Council on the November 10 agenda. And that would take place ahead of the next scheduled date for MEDC, which would be November 16. So this would allow for the quickest and smoothest transition going into the holiday period, and also allow the Gunda Corporation to have an opportunity to get their feet under them before the holidays. There's 2 action items associated with this. Agenda item 5 is to accept the report and the recommendation for the committee. After that, agenda item 6 is to authorize the MEDC president and the city administrator to negotiate and execute a contract with Gunda Corporation to provide services for downtown design and streetscape improvements project, and to refer the item to City Council for their review and approval. Now, I've gone through basically 2 agenda items worth there, but they interlace together. I also, want to make sure that those associated with the committee, also have an opportunity to speak about their thoughts and experiences that they see as appropriate. And if there's any questions from the rest of the board, as well. So, but I wanted to make sure to cover all those items at the outset here.
So a lot of times when City Council does something like this and we receive a report, we're just recommending to, like item number 5, we're just receiving the report. Would you rather that we just do that and then discuss as part of item number 6? Or would you like us to take everything all at once and do item number 5 and 6 back to back at the end?
I think either of them would be okay, but I think for the most transparent would be to receive the report and the recommendation, as one quick item, and then put the base of the discussion into item number 6. I mean,
Okay,
ultimately,
is that okay with?
ultimately item number 5 doesn't have any significant teeth if you don't approve item number 6.
Right. So all we're doing with item number 5 is just acknowledging that you've spoken and given the recommendation of the committee.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that fine with the rest of the board?
Yes.
Yes, it's fine.
Okay. Would somebody who's
looking for a
not
motion?
Dan or myself?
Yeah.
Rebecca, are you looking for a motion? A quick motion to
Yes,
go to the
please.
next item? Okay. I move to receive the report and recommendation from the SOQ Review Committee.
And I second that.
It has been moved and seconded that we receive the recommendation from the SOQ Review Committee for the Downtown Design and Streetscape Improvement Project. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion? All those in favor that we receive the recommendation from the SOQ Review Committee for the Downtown Design and Streetscape Improvement Project, say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will receive the recommendation from the SOQ Review Committee for the Downtown Design and Streetscape Improvement Project. Okay, now to the meat.
Okay.
Richard, you said that 5 out of 6 of the committee members recommended Gunda. Do you want to talk about why the 6th person, which was Mike, recommended LJA?
It was primarily because there's strength on the engineering and public works side, which professionally lines up very closely with their view as well as Mike Muckeroy's view of the items. And I don't think there's any surprise in that. In their presentation, I could see that for myself as well. What swayed me, as I said earlier, partly over to Gunda, part of that was I think they presented better how to take the meat of everything and relay that into a vision that will translate through their document into a final plan. I'm not saying that I thought LJA couldn't do it, but I think Gunda did a better job of their presentation into making that into something that we could understand. And Mike also agreed that he was not saying in that he thought Gunda was not qualified. He was just placing LJA slightly ahead of Gunda. I would say similarly, I had Gunda #1, but I had LJA not far behind. So I think that's mostly a slight difference of opinion based on perspective. That also shows you why you put multiple people with a different background on here, because you want those different perspectives to come up, not just in the review, but also the questioning and the examination.
Right. And also, I couldn't say personally that I disagreed with anything that Mike said, although I did feel like a lot of what LJA spoke about was stuff that the city does have a good handle with, that we need to do underground to prepare for what's going to happen above ground. And really the downtown design, it obviously can't happen in a vacuum, but the downtown design will not be designing what's happening underground. They need to work together, but that's not what we're contracting for. We're contracting for what will make our downtown work, what will make it draw visitors, what will make our residents satisfied, what will make our merchants satisfied, and what will make it a durable improvement for many years to come. So if they're not, I didn't feel that they were mutually exclusive.
Mm.
Yeah, and you're right in there that the design of the underground work, that's something that takes place in the future. Yes, we'll have to do the underground work before we do the work that comes on top of it, but that's not, that underground design isn't part of what we're here deciding about here.
Yeah, I was really surprised by, their lead designer had clearly been here and spent some time thinking about what Montgomery was, which was interesting. I don't know how many of you looked at the documents, but how we're kind of caught between, modern and growth and still our country roots. And, he didn't want to pave over the country just to make space or, room for people to come. And I thought that was really an important part of who we are, even if we haven't figured out how to do it ourselves. That's why we need help.
Yeah, agreed. Did anyone on the committee go and visit one of those 3 locations, Center, Jasper, or Lake Jackson, the examples that they gave of their work and see it in person?
No.
Yeah.
I did not.
My impression of Gunda overall was the fact that they had done a lot of local work. They're presently doing the Fish Creek thoroughfare bridges.
Uh-huh.
Seems to be keeping up with pace, keeping a good clean site, and their ability to work with the county locals and the state. They tended to know, the path that we're going to need to take to go through with DOT and with the county.
Mm-hmm.
That was part of the reason that I was supporting them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I was also impressed by the fact that they talked about funding, which LJA did talk about funding, but they talked about helping us get money from our EDC, which I was amused by. So, there are a lot of different funding opportunities that Gunda has. It sounds like they've actually designed with some opportunities in mind.
That's awesome.
With ways that we can present ourselves. And, they're very specific that there's no guarantees, but just the idea that they had agencies in mind that we haven't considered before, I thought was unique.
Yeah, they have 6 different ones listed.
They also were willing to somewhat guide us through this because of their past history in doing them, which would be very helpful.
Right.
Was Dave able to speak to somebody over in Tomball's EDC?
She and I have been playing phone tag, and so as such, I've not been able to link up with her yet. But
Okay.
she said she's very pleased overall. But I've not actually been able to have a conversation with her.
Okay. And also, I think in the Gunda partnership, you know, their landscape architecture firm is an equal partner, not a subservient partner to the engineers, which is nice.
Yeah.
And Dan, where you talked about their work with the county on the Fish Creek thoroughfare right now, I learned last week they're also working with a cooperative project to do a new transit plan for all of Precinct 2, which includes, included with their planning committee, includes contacts not just with TxDOT and HTAC, but governmental contacts from all the cities and a number of other community groups and governmental groups within all of Precinct 2 for Montgomery County. So they're obviously well-versed and well-connected with, with dealing with a lot of various agencies all at once. Certainly more than we will have on this project.
And they didn't rule out the idea of backing out on a TxDOT road, which made me giddy.
It definitely will help us with the parking situation on the 149.
Well, at least if we,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, at least if we can start out knowing what TxDOT has agreed to in the past and what their parameters are, it makes things easier.
I agree. Yeah, that was the first statement that they made. Is the first thing we've got to do is get with TxDOT, get a blessing before any of this happens. So, and they're right. So, no one else presented that as a beginning statement.
Right.
Hey, Richard?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what type of bonding are we requiring them to have?
Well, for this work, they're going to be paid after they produce, so that this is not typically the kind of work that you would have bonded, because this is all going to be professional services work. When it comes out to doing the actual construction work that is outdoors, underground, and above ground, there would be a significant but regular type of construction bond that will be associated with that.
Okay, all right.
Any other thoughts or questions?
They seem to be very, very qualified and have very impressive credentials, especially locally and regionally. So I think you guys made a really good decision.
Yeah,
There was a lot to wade through.
we appreciate y'all's diligence on this. I know it's a lot of work to look through this stuff, but it's really important.
I think a couple of you found out exactly why staff was desiring a couple of the EDC directors to be on here. Not partly so that we got your input going forward just from the staff perspective, but also so that you were looking at it from the same perspective as the rest of your board members.
Well, I think one of the most important things, though, is the fact that we'd already gone through the comprehensive plan project. So it's not so much that I had this in my head and Dan had that in his head, but, we'd already gone through something that had solidified from community input what was generally the needs of the community. And I think that really helped quite a bit. And some people are just addicted to asphalt too. So that definitely helped eliminate a couple of contenders. So are people comfortable generally with going ahead with the recommendation of the committee then? Tom, you sounded pretty enthusiastic. Amy, you've been pretty quiet. Okay.
It's been a long day.
Julie, I can't see you, but you sound okay with the idea?
I am.
Okay. Arnett? besides the bonding question, did you have any other questions you wanted to ask?
No, I think they sound like they come and highly recommended, particularly with all the projects they're currently working with.
And Richard, can you let everyone know what they thought their timeline would be once they were given the signed or once a contract was negotiated?
There's some variability to it, especially with regards to ability to put on public events. And that's one reason why I'm hoping to get them to get some of the ball rolling before the holiday period. But I believe the actual timeline will work out to be between 6 to 8 months, including with the holiday period here. And so, so I'd add maybe just a bit of padding there for realism with the holidays. But I think it gets us with their timeline where we want to be, because you'll be well within this fiscal year when the report comes through, or when they're completed. And then we can look at how starting to move that forward and probably having some designing cost into this current fiscal year, which you did budget for.
Do we have an idea of what their fees will be? Did I miss that?
No, I mean, you didn't miss it because it wasn't discussed.
Okay.
And that's part of the legal process with hiring.
Okay.
Under professional services. We're not legally allowed to discuss those fees until we've identified
Gotcha.
what's supposed to be the appropriate firm, and then we negotiate a fee.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Well, if everybody's okay, I'm going to make a motion.
Yes.
I think that'd be great, Tom.
Okay. Make a motion to authorize the MEDC board president and city administrator to negotiate and execute a contract with, is it Gunda or Gunda? Gunda Corporation to provide services for the downtown design and streetscape improvements project, and refer the item to city council for approval of the expense.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to authorize the MEDC board president and city administrator to negotiate and execute a contract to provide services for the downtown design and streetscape improvement project. Refer the item to city council for approval of the expense with Gunda Corporation. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion passes unanimously, and we will authorize the MEDC board president and city administrator to negotiate and execute a contract with Gunda Corporation to provide services for the downtown design and streetscape improvement process, and refer the item to city council for approval of the expense. Item number 7, discuss and consider the authorization and allocation of funds for the Montgomery Holiday Parade event.
Okay. The Montgomery Holiday Parade event is included in the MEDC budget. It's listed as Christmas event 56100.8, but it has no funds currently allocated. This event has previously been put on by other groups, but this year it's being organized and run by the city. The city's committee planning this event had put together an estimated budget at $3,000 for this event, with a request that MEDC fund the corresponding budget line item up to $1,500 to go against the cost of organizing and conducting the parade. As a note for that estimated budget, $2,000 are estimated costs to cover internal police and public works personnel's overtime cost and additional cost for security. I mentioned that specifically because I've noted that in the past, the EDC has often covered such items. And so I wanted you to know that, approval of $1,500 would, it could be easily construed to cover items that have been covered in the past by the EDC.
So can you explain to
In
me?
the past, Civic Association and Historical Association? Do we know who sponsored it in the past and how come they don't want to do it this year?
The Historical Society sponsored it in the past, and last year, with 2 weeks to go, they threw it down and said they were out.
Oh, because we wouldn't give them any money?
No, because the police chief requested information like who was in the parade and asked for some, yeah.
Okay.
So
The
it was
security plan and the organizing plan so that we could, guarantee the street closures and all, and, disperse the security personnel. And that's when the city really picked it up to complete the parade last year. We didn't try to necessarily make a big deal out of it, but we made sure it got done.
I'm fine with that.
I think it ended up being that it took a lot of city personnel anyway. So in order to get it done with actually less effort on the city's part, it seemed easier to go this way.
Good.
Sorry, Amy, you were trying to say something?
Can you explain to me if we're only asking for up to $1,500 to go against the costs, but $2,000 is the cost to cover internal police and public work personnel overtime costs? Why is this request just for $1,500 and not $2,000?
Well, the request the committee put together, was, for a 50-50 split between of the 3,000 between the city and the EDC. I was the one who put the note of how much of the cost in the budget applied to both police and public works. And I put that there because those are things that I've seen that the EDC has covered in the past. And sometimes the EDC has tagged funds to go towards certain items. So I wanted to provide that information if the EDC chose to provide it, conditional to certain items. Certainly the EDC could just provide the $1,500 to go as 50% against the event cost if it chose to do that as well.
So who is organizing the parade then? I mean, is in charge of, placement of the floats and all of that kind of?
We are here at the city.
I'm sorry?
We are here at City Hall.
Okay.
So is a $25 entry fee, correct, Becky?
Yes.
Okay. You think that won't discourage people to participate?
I ran a parade in Kingsville for 5 or 6 years when we lived there, and no is the answer. People were throwing money at me about as fast as I could hand it to our treasurer. And that was, we've lived here for 9 years, so generally no. If there was a need, we could look at waiving it. So, but generally speaking, I don't think it's an issue. I spoke to somebody, I think it was last week about it, and we were specifically talking about money. And I said, well, if you combine groups this way, you can put it all under one entry fee. And she's like, oh, no, I don't care about the money. I said, okay, well, that's good, I guess. Like, no, that's nothing.
Have there ever been fees in the past?
No.
Yeah.
But also, the city had an invisible subsidy in the past and basically ate the overtime costs, and it never showed up in the budget until people asked where their overtime money went.
What's the average number of entries?
Last year, I want to say there were 70 some odd.
Well, I think with the previous committee that actually took care of the parade, I would think they may be able to have an influence on participants. Maybe, I don't know. I hope not.
So we have someone at the city who's been placed in charge of notifying all the applicants per registration from last year, and making them aware of what's required.
And we have the email. We have the email contacts, and of course, we're also able to now push this out on the city's Facebook page. We have registration available if somebody wants to come into City Hall to pick it up. So we we have additional methods. We can push it out, the signboard that we have at the corner of 105 and 149. And I've fielded at least a couple phone calls that have come in with questions about it as well. So there is information out there. People are knowing to look towards City Hall about registration. And even last year, we received a number of calls about it, even though we had to redirect them to the Historical Society. So now they are needing to call City Hall, but we can take care of them with that.
When's the drop dead date if I want to have a float? When's the last date? I don't want to have one, but when's the last date we would accept somebody, their application?
I want to say it's November 15th, but it's been a while since I read the application and I don't have one here in front of me.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't recall the date, but I believe it's somewhere in, in the mid to late November timeframe. We also have a date a little bit after that. That is we're telling people is our drop dead date for, we will make a go decision related to the pandemic situation so that we're not canceling it on them at the very last moment.
Okay.
Well, personally, I don't have a problem with the $25, but I think given the atmosphere of everything from COVID to just people being unemployed, the $25 may discourage some people.
Someone really approached me and said, they were dying to be in the parade and that $25 was an impediment. I'd be happy to help them find a way to make it work.
Yeah.
Do you have any, excuse me, do you have any idea how many people have already signed up?
We have 2 applications right now that I know of.
Sign me up, Becky. I'll be in it.
You're going to be in it? Awesome.
Yes.
I'll send you an application. Are you going to bring pom-poms?
I'm going to bring my 222.
Woo! That will definitely increase the festive atmosphere.
Matter of fact, I may put a couple of vehicles in the parade. Do I have to pay twice?
All right.
That's $50.
Nope. If you sign them up under one form, it's one fee.
Okay.
Well, my company would be willing to put in $100 as a scholarship for 4 teams that may need some help.
That's nice.
Okay.
Right.
I'll run through the list of people from last year and see if there's anyone that I think might need it.
Yeah, I'll match you.
Or actually,
Yeah, Dan, that's
Okay.
a great idea. My company will do that too. I'll match you.
Okay, I'm with you. That's $300 right there.
I mean, that's 200. There's 8 entries.
Okay. Well, we'll keep that in mind. If there's some that need sponsoring between anyone that approaches me, or if they approach Becky, then we'll know that we'll have essentially a small bank of coverage here for them.
or we can put it on the Facebook page as a thing for your companies, because that's a really generous holiday thing to do. I'd love to let people know.
I think that's a good idea.
Sunday is open. Email me your logos and I'll do it.
Okay.
So sorry, 56100.8 is actually in the budget that was approved as the Christmas party. I think we talked about that as well, that was just a typo that we would leave and then just relabel it. Instead of Christmas party, it would be Christmas parade.
Correct.
I mean, much as I love a Christmas party, I don't think that we were planning on.
All right. Okay, so
So
do you need a motion?
Yes.
So I will make a motion to approve up to $1,500 to go towards the city's expenses for the Christmas or Montgomery Holiday Parade.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve up to $1,500 to go towards city's expenses for the Montgomery Holiday Parade. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor of approving up to $1,500 towards the city's expenses for the Montgomery Holiday Parade event, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will approve up to $1,500 of funds towards the city's expenses of the Montgomery Holiday Parade event. All right. Item number 8. And Richard, do you want to roll item number 10 into this as well, since that's sort of a discussion item too?
I can do that, and I'll just put it at the end here. If I leave
Okay.
that off, just jog my memory when we get to that point, please.
Okay.
All right. Well, with regards to the administrative report, I'm going to hit the high items on this. With the health department generally reporting COVID-19 numbers on a slow but general decline across the county, even when it was at a higher level, development was still moving forward in the city, both residential and commercial. At the Shops of Montgomery, Starbucks is under construction, as is the building that will house Chipotle, Ruthie Grace Boutique, and Hotworks Fitness Studio. The fitness studio has been seen out with activity in advertising their memberships already. 55 new homes have been completed in 2020. 4 were completed in September, and 2 more were permitted in September. So they're continuing to move forward, and we're coming up to the time of year where a lot of those tend to slow down. And with other development work that's out there, with developments to be coming forward as developers continue, these numbers are going to start picking up again in a few months. With the home grant, 3 homes were completed and closed. The 4th home should be completed and closed around the end of this month. When the last one closes, there's some expenses that are coming back to the city and the EDC that will be reimbursed after the final closing. I believe that answers the question, Julie, that you had last meeting. And comprehensive plan, the draft of that is to be presented to the city council at the council meeting October 27th. So that can also take another step in moving forward. The city is working on developing minimum MUD standards, MUD meaning municipal utility districts, as a guideline for allowing in-city MUDs for development. The discussion is centering around 3 main points of those. One has to deal with, how is having the MUD a benefit to its residents and to the city, such as the amenities and improvements that it can provide. How is having the MUD a benefit to the broader community? A potential example of that is the developer being able to offer a variety of housing options or other construction that's not presently offered in the city. And how is having the MUD beneficial to the city? Potentially things such as our ability to ensure a fiscally responsive plan for development and helping to plan the growth in the city. We received approval from City Council to engage a MUD attorney. I'm currently working with our city attorney to identify an appropriate MUD attorney that we'll expect to do in the near future and make recommendations back to City Council. And this has potential to have a big impact with development in the city. One of the main tools of a in-city MUD with a developer is to allow developer reimbursement to reclaim certain expenses. But we have, from the city's perspective, want to ensure everything being built is going to be beneficial to the city as a whole, to the benefits of the overall community, and including specifically to the benefits of that specific community, that's there. So anticipate more to report back on this part later. With regards, or I guess, let me pause there. Does anyone have any questions specific to the development report?
No.
Okay. Then with regards to carrying on with item number 10, the EDC terms are coming up to expire at the end of the year. And so I just want to make sure, well, one, everyone's aware of that, because with the holiday period, the end of the year has an ability to come pretty fast and hard at times. And the terms that are coming up for appointment or reappointment belong to Rebecca Huss, and that her position is reserved for a city council member. I believe everyone here knows that her term will be coming up following the election that's coming up in November, with the swearing in of a replacement for her position. Amy Brown, Julie Hutchison, sorry, Julie, and Bob Kerr. And so we will soon be putting out information within the community on the qualifications to serve on the EDC and how to apply. But I want to have some discussion here with the committee members, or sorry, the board members first, so that one, everyone was reminded about this, everyone knows which positions are coming up, and everyone knows that from the public who may tune into these meetings, that information will be disseminated out publicly. We'll, at some points or other, we will certainly advertise that on the city's webpage. We'll put that out on the signboard. Typically, there's notation in the mailer that goes out for the utility bills, and there may be other methods that we employ as well. So this is an informational update item, and no actions needed at this time. But I wanted to bring everyone up to date on this information.
Excellent. Well, I hope that our visiting public is happy to know that.
Yeah. Well,
oh, wait, we don't have anyone.
Well, sometimes you have to keep in mind, just because we don't see them here, they now have the ability to pick this up off the website. And I do know, from having heard from people from time to time, that some of these meetings do get listened to by people, even though it's not live.
That is so true. Mm-hmm. I have actually heard that, although not recently.
And if it's embarrassing, it's preserved for posterity as well.
Hey, I've got one question. Does the president's position have to be held by a city council member, or can it be any member of the board?
Any member of the board can hold the president's position. It's just coincidental for the last few years that it has been city council.
Okay.
And this is appointed by city council?
Yes.
Two people have been appointed by city council. The position, the board leadership is elected within the people who are on the board.
Yeah, and so
for president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer will take place in January again.
Yes.
Right. We switched our annual meeting. It used to be in September, which never worked very well with the annual appointments, which were in January. It got to be quite, well, actually, at one point we weren't having our annual meetings at all. So we started doing that a couple of years, 2 years ago. We had we changed our bylaws to change our annual meetings to our appointment terms, and then started having annual meetings.
Yeah, it's definitely at the right time to have those appointments for those, those elections for those offices immediately following the appointments. So, and since since terms taking place to begin in January, then the January meeting is the perfect opportunity for those elections.
Right. Richard, do we have anything that you need us in executive session for?
We do not. I don't have anything to update us on at the moment from our previous executive sessions, other than things are winding to a close, and we'll probably be able to make an announcement about that in the future. So.
Well, I certainly hope in the future, rather than having missed it in the past. Yeah. Excellent. Would anyone like to have anything in the board inquiry portion?
Yes, I do have this one remaining item from from last month. Richard, did you discuss with the attorney concerning rescinding event sponsorship?
I did, and he was going to get back to me, and I don't recall that he did. First thing in the morning, I'll go through my emails just to make sure there is nothing I have missed on that, and otherwise I will follow back up. So thank you.
Amy, I didn't catch what you asked. What sponsorship?
We had discussed last month that Richard would speak to the attorney concerning the event sponsorship and us sending approvals for events that don't ever happen.
Oh, that's right.
We currently have a few outs.
Okay, gotcha. Yes, that's right.
And I suspect what happened there is we had, around that same time that he was going to look at that, we had a flurry of a couple other items that had a little higher profile, and it may have just gotten pushed into the background on his part. So, and it certainly did on my part with those two. So I will, like I said, I'll verify that the answer is not hiding in my email, and then I'll reapproach him if necessary.
But we'll just follow up again next month.
Right.
Thank
And can you also put licensing on the list?
Yes. Yeah, and that we're working with the attorney on the licensing activities, and so that is beginning to work its way through the system.
And
Okay,
are you
so we can't license before we have everything else settled?
I think we, from my understanding from that discussion is licensing related to copyright issues that we can. I mean, we could license we could license that ahead of formally possessing a government approval.
Okay, so then we should actually have a form and start doing it forthwith.
Are
No?
you referring to the goat trademarking, or are you referring to something else?
I'm referring to the goat in that I think that that's where the value of licensing is. I'm honestly not sure that there are people willing to pay money for the other.
And to be clear, Julie, we're talking about a copyright, not a trademark. Those are two distinct things. Something I've been told several times by the attorneys, and so just for the record here to get to be using the right term on that one.
So a copyright for the goat logo for social media? And
now for other uses as well as, but the goat, yeah, you're thinking of for the social media icon, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right, so using the goat for face masks, shirts, coffee mugs, magnets, car stickers, parades, confetti, beads, earrings, necklaces, barrettes, bows, jeans, sweatshirts. I don't know. It seems like there needs to be a run-on sentence, because if you don't put something in, apparently you can be pipped at the post.
Yes. Yeah, and so so we're working our way through the copyright application with our attorney, but we do possess the ability to go ahead and start moving forward on licensing that. And
so along those lines, the $1,500 that we approved at last meeting, not to exceed $1,500 to move forward with the copyright of the goat for professional service will not be booked in this current fiscal year that we just finished at September 30th.
I believe part of it will, because part of it may have had, I handed the paperwork over to the bookkeeper earlier today for the first part of the expenses in there. As I'm thinking of it, it probably had an October date, not a September date on that though.
Okay. And as a follow-up from last meeting, did anything happen with the $1,200 that we approved for those goat plywood cutouts?
The production of the cutouts has begun. The city has not yet been invoiced for that from the Public Works Department, but that'll happen in the near future.
Okay, and my last follow-up was on the radios that we approved a couple of months ago. Have those been purchased?
They've been ordered and we're waiting on their delivery and invoicing.
Okay.
Any kind of time on those?
I'm sorry?
Any kind of time frame on those radios?
About 3 weeks ago, we were told 3 to 4 weeks. The chief last Thursday and Friday was trying to get an update to that for tonight, and he has not been so informed as to what the update is yet.
Okay.
So he's currently pursuing that, and and related to the goat cutouts, we're just about complete with finalizing a form to take out to the businesses or to provide to the businesses within the Montgomery community that would like to utilize one of those goats.
Okay, awesome. Oh, I thought of another follow-up question that doesn't have to do with money, or maybe it does. What about the goat contest that was mentioned a couple of months ago with the school district?
That's actually well underway of getting out into the school district, and I believe we'll be able to keep our schedule with being able to have a finalist to award that to around the second week of December.
Okay.
And I think we're also looking at alternative ways of being able to coordinate with students who may be in Montgomery that may be homeschooled and not part of MISD.
Okay, super.
Right. I have a post planned for Saturday on that. And Richard was able to garner a high-profile judge to do the final picking, and we're trying to get a community-based semifinalist judge panel. So we're trying to spread around the love.
Great.
But it should be fun. Actually, it should be a lot of fun. A little bit daunting though, with there are 4,000 kids 5th grade and below in the MISD. So if we get 4,000 entries, that's a lot. I mean, I was talking to somebody who has subbed art at that level, and some of it will definitely be not the final, but some kids have amazing talent at that level. I think it will be really difficult to choose.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see if we end up with thousands of goats turned in, just how much room that might take up.
Right.
Question, Richard, from the behind the scenes at City Hall, or any talk of when we may start in-person meetings again?
Well, the primary issue really here is, the fact that City Hall has a relatively small meeting space, and when you account for the number of, I'll take it for instance, for the EDC board members here, you account for the staff that would be there, the board members. There's only room for about 5 or 6 other people to wish to attend, and within the city council meeting space, we don't have the ability to readily broadcast. And so we're in the position of having to tell people potentially they can't enter a public meeting, which we really can't do, or we put people at a health risk potentially. And it's really a difficult line right there.
I understand.
Right.
Another question would be nothing to do with the MDC, but I'm seeing on Facebook they're advertising the wine festival the first week of November. Is that, do you have any insight on that?
That's the move back timeline on the modified chamber event that's usually earlier in the year. And so that's, Shannon Reed, and that's something the city, it's not a city event, but the city will coordinate with her as necessary. And this year is obviously a modified event with the pandemic situation.
I think from what I've seen, they're not doing a large crowd downtown. They're selling a passport, which is basically an invitation, I guess, to various places around the area. So, Tom, are you participating in that?
No, it's a wine trail and a beer trail, basically, using the passport. It's definitely modified. I don't know. I know they were still looking for sponsors and help, but I don't know what success they anticipate having. So I don't know a lot about it.
So I don't think that we'll see any kind of real impact to our downtown. Like Winefest is usually obviously a big draw for the city.
Yeah, I don't anticipate that at all.
Which is disappointing. I mean, it's clever to think of something that is doable in this environment, but definitely not a replacement for bringing 5,000 people here.
It's a difficult one to try to replace.
Right. Although I hope she keeps it this weekend going forward. Winefest in September, it's so brutally hot all the time. Okay, anyone have anything else for Richard? I will entertain a motion to adjourn otherwise.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we adjourn. The motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. The motion passes unanimously, and we are adjourned at 7:16. That's like a record for us. Thank you very
All
much,
right.
everyone. I appreciate your time.
All right. Good night.
All right, good night.
Thank
Have a good
you.
evening.